Yo, and welcome to the 100th episode of Lake of Rage, a Pokemon trading card game podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kevin Clementi, aka Mellow_Magikarp. I'm joined today by two very special temporary guest hosts. Both of them will be attending EUIC, and therefore we're going to give you a bit of an update to the EUIC meta today. Last week's episode, we had a meta discussion with three top players about what their testing groups have been playing and things like that, but we got some more data coming in from these online tournaments, and so we feel like it's responsible to give you a bit of an update. The first person joining us for the first time in a while, but the 12th time overall, if not more, we have Grant Mathey, aka Boosie K.
Hello, Kevin. I'd like to say congratulations on 100 episodes. I'd also like to say happy Easter weekend, happy Masters weekend, and happy birthday to you, buddy.
Thank you, Grant. I appreciate that. And joining us for the first time, all the way over from Europe right now, over in Denmark, we have Christian Fontenot. Christian, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I just like to say I wasn't told it was your birthday, so happy birthday.
Thank you.
And congratulations on 100 episodes. I wasn't told that either. So this is all big news to me. But yeah, it's gonna be a good episode for sure.
Yeah, I'm not one for milestones, so you were purposely not told either of those.
Too late.
All right, so to start us off, we're going to talk a little bit about the Pokemon trading card game live, because now we've all been playing it. For better or worse, we have all been forced to it. So we're going to talk a little bit about it, the good, the bad, the everything. And then most of the episode is going to be talking about EUIC. We're going to go deck by deck, the good, the bad. Is this a good play? Is this a bad play? Should you tech against this, even if it's a good or a bad play? All that good stuff for all of the meta decks. So first, Pokemon trading card game live. Grant, you mentioned you're the one who wanted this on the agenda. What you got for us?
Yeah, I'm normally known for my Grant rant segments on the podcast, and it's not necessarily a rant, but having some time to play with it now, it's been an interesting experience. I did not migrate. I started with the free decks that they gave you. I did it on my computer. I got 4 Mew codes for $250 each. So that gave me the Mew deck essentially, as well as a bunch of whatever the credit is to craft cards. I did 4 toolkits as well for the Lumineon toolkit, and that gave me a bunch of credit. So I basically was able to build all the decks that I need. And on desktop, I think the game, I guess, is okay. Building your deck is quite the nightmare. Having to search things, scroll down the different variety, okay, well, full art, pre-release, promo, whatever. It takes a lot of work to figure out. There's no smooth interface to it like there was on PTCGO. My problem mainly was it bricked my computer, essentially. My mouse would keep disconnecting. If I hovered over icons on my toolbar, everything would start flashing up. And this is a pretty new computer. I built it with top of the line parts right before the COVID price spike. So I use it. I've got 5 monitors going. Great for everything else. Never had an issue with it. And all of a sudden just destroyed it. So I've gone to my gaming iPhone, an iPhone 8 Max or whatever, the bigger one, and you can see where they put their focus in on the mobile. It's pretty smooth and crisp. It reminds me a lot of Snap. It works really well. The deck building still sucks, but yeah, just the whole thing's been kind of a cluster, to say the least. But I mean, it shows some promise, I guess. Queuing in the games, I think there's an issue there. I had to queue for over an hour down in the Togepi, tier, trying to find my first games. I'd quit out. I'd start it again. Quit out. Start again. Go look at my stats. The first time playing, 0 for 7. 7 losses. So I got a loss for every time I tried to queue into the game and never got a game. So that's been my experience so far. I don't know. I think playing people down at those levels is all the pre-made decks, so it's not really any help for testing. So thankfully, having a testing group is helping with that. But yeah, that's it. What do you guys think?
Christian.
Yeah, I have on live. Actually, not all negative. I think when the game works, a big emphasis on when. I think it's fine, right? I can play the decks I want like reasonably. I think they give you a fair amount of credits just for playing. Once you get out of like Elo Hell, which really isn't that bad, like Great Ball League tier, whatever it's called, it's fine. You get like actual decks, like actual opponents. I've been grinding as well, just online. I migrated like a couple of days before Scarlet and Violet just to like get out of like the lower ranks. But I mean, it's nice that I can play on my phone and I can play with most of the decks like that are relevant, with like minimal effort because the credit system is thankfully pretty good. But it's like the game is so slow first and foremost, especially on my phone. I have a bit of an older phone, so that's probably part of it. But even like on desktop, I have a gaming PC back home, so that should not be an issue, right? It's a card game. But like playing Gardevoir, for example, you have to manually drag all of your energies up, and for every energy, it places 20 damage, and then it goes back, and it loads between everyone. Like, attaching 10 energies to a Zacian to end the game, like, everyone knows the game's over, right? But attaching energies to a Zacian, yeah, that's going to take you like a solid minute. It's a miserable experience to just sit there and do that. And then sometimes with Gardy, I think we found out the reason, but like sometimes it'll lock you into whatever the whatever the ability is called. I just called Psychic Recharge.
The Gardy ability, yeah.
But yeah, Gardy's ability, like it'll just lock you into it. You won't be able to end it, and I think it's if your opponent concedes while you're like in the ability, it'll lock you in. But it'll still give you the win if you like close the app. I think I'm not sure what the details on that, but it's a mess, right? It's a mess. But when the game works, like it's just Peach CGO, but again, and has like a ranked ladder, which is cool. I don't think it was necessary. Like I don't know why I had to migrate, but I'm here and I get to play Pokemon, so it's okay.
It's like the migration was one of those things that it was really cool at the start, right? Because it was like TPCI is going to take charge of this. So all the game rules should be accurate. They can fix things immediately instead of going like, all right, you got to go tell Direwolf. Direwolf has to fix it. And then they have to send back and let them test it to make sure that it works the way it's supposed to. But like you said, it's not. So I am a weird case. I've not encountered a single bug. I've only played probably 25, 30 games on live because like we'll get to this. The game is so slow. The game is just so slow at all the actions, but I haven't encountered any bugs. So in theory, I'm content, but in reality, I am on Twitter and I'm well aware that it is not perfect. And that's the killer. We were forced to migrate and it seemed good. It did seem incredibly positive that it was going to be under TPCI's rule because they don't make the rules, but they get the rules from TPC. Shout out to Earn not shuffling back impact energy on that one, but they get the rules.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, can we appreciate Archeops being the better Houndoom just like all the way around?
Finally, I get some revenge.
Houndoom just can't feel good about that.
No. It's like, single strike's finally meta.
Yeah.
And it works so well with Radiant Serena too. Like, you could really have a good like single strike engine going, and they took that from us.
Yeah.
But anyway, the game is, in theory, the migration was supposed to be good, and it just still has to work properly. I am in a Discord where I can send stuff immediately to someone at TPCI. And so feel free to tag me if you have video of bugs on Twitter and you tweet it out. Feel free to tag at mellow_Magikarp and I can forward it over to them. Because if you just complain into the void, guess what's not going to get fixed? The bugs that they don't know exist. So please do that because they exist. And there's a lot of them because I am in the Discord where I can see what other creators are posting about bugs as well. That's the killer. That is the thing. But the speed sucks. The game is so slow and clunky, and that's what kills it.
It's confusing.
See, I think the UI is so good. Mostly,
I slide something up, like I have to drag it up into the spot. I have to I keep clicking the card, and I get the full art card. Like I got to go back to the screen because I'm supposed to drag my card. Like it should be more intuitive.
Oh, you're talking about the deck building or the
no the gameplay. So
Really?
like when you select
Yeah.
something like you rope and then you have to pick your thing to the active and like I keep clicking the wrong card, like it moves over and like it's just kind of like not how you would play the game. Like at least like PTCGO, it felt like this is how I'd be playing the game IRL.
Yeah.
And now it's like like you could drag the boss up and tag their card and stuff like that. Like
I
you
miss
tap their
that.
card in real life and things like that. Like it's just
I still do
and
that too on this. I'll drag the boss to it, and then it goes right back to my hand because it's not the valid place to play the card.
So it's conditioning us into a play style now, which I think is going to be kind of hurtful for the IRL game, on its own going forward, because that was the best part, was that you could learn the game from PTCGO and actually how to play it. But the other thing is, I think that's what makes the turns take so long, is to have to do all these extra steps. And so I don't know, like, do like the online tournaments have to make rounds longer, because I think that's become an issue where every game is going to be really close to time when these games should be over pretty quick, especially now like with Lost Box being everywhere, like a lot of single prize stuff, so you're going to take 6 prizes and it's going to take forever. And so now who is that going to kill the online scene if that happens, because now you're going to have to play 8-hour tournaments instead of 6-hour tournament. The whole thing is messed up all because it's so clunky.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, just to interject, I'm pretty sure most online tournaments have gone from 25-minute to 30-minute timers because of live. Good. And also another thing, like when you add someone to your friends list on live, you have to close the game, log back on to challenge them. It's so bad.
And it's a long loading screen. It takes a while.
Like it's like even on PC, like it's not.
It's like catching Pokemon or something. Collecting assets. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Fire the guy who put that in. That's just too much.
No, I love that. I love the stupid things. I wish there's so many other issues, but I think it's so stupid. I love it.
It gets like 36 out of 39. It's like collecting assets, where you're like, okay. And then it switches to a snarky quip. Like, who got paid money to put that in from 36 to 39?
Bro, the same person who put in, I just ate a whole bottle of ketchup. Like,
well, that's good. That's good. That's a Pikachu reference, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's good. That's funny. Like, hey, we're taking a little while here. Here's something funny for you.
I love the pre-game thing. I hate the post-game one. If I lost, I don't want to see you flexing and saying GG's or whatever. I hate that with a passion, but I love the pre-game one.
I think mine says something like, well, that settles that, or something like, if you say that IRL, you could probably get DQ'd. I guess the better deck won, huh? Like, what?
This is also feedback I've given them intentionally that I encourage everyone else to. I'm going to use my platform. Tell them to stop making us click the prizes and hit done when you win the game, because it takes so much extra time to finish the stupid game. And when you're on the winning side of things, it doesn't feel good. And when you're on the losing side of things, it feels really bad to sit there and wait that extra time. Anyway, Christian, you're going to say something.
Oh, sorry. Go
ahead. No, sorry, it wasn't relevant.
Okay.
Yeah, imagine the IRL pop off if you attack, and then you have to reach over and take your 2 prizes, and the cut screen goes to the prize taker.
All right, so live is okay. It exists.
I mean, I'm rooting for it, obviously. Like, I wish it was better, but especially with the Force stuff, like they had a whole year to get these things in place. Like, we're still in beta, and it's a forced beta. And the other thing I'm curious about, like the business model. I don't know, codes don't do a lot, but codes do drive buying product and drawing people into the game. Like, if you're a collector and you have codes, you see a lot of people always like, I have all these codes here they are for free. But the others, like, I have codes, where do I put them in? Now I'm playing the game online. Now I'm playing more. Now I'm buying more. Going to these events and spending $70 and all this stuff. And like, you get half the decks for free, and you can craft, and you can only put 400. Is that real? You can only put 400 of a set in?
Yeah, I don't understand that one. Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me, to be capping these things.
That's really weird. I haven't heard that yet. But
I'm sure it's something about exploiting,
celebration.
Celebrations essentially. But you could do that for one set. I have hundreds of Battle Styles codes. Now they're like, I actually have to get rid of them because I have more than 400.
Yeah, the economics of it was always going to be a loss. That was a given. And I'm not a business person. I've constantly explained I don't understand the business of TCG. I made a tweet a little while ago and like, why do people sponsor people? Don't you just lose money? And like several people reached out and said, yes, we intend to lose a lot of money. It's like, okay, cool. That's intentional. Lives, I'm pretty sure the same thing of like, I'm pretty sure they just intend to lose a buttload of money. But there's just like things like that where it's like, but why? Because like the code secondary market means people buy it, open them, sell the singles and sell the codes. So it's like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It should still be, you don't do this, especially bringing it internally to lose money for a purpose, like, or without a purpose. Like the purpose should be growing the game, bringing people in, having an outlet for people. Otherwise, if that's not the case, give Robin a few more weeks and he'll have a client for us, you know? Like he's done a better job. Yeah, he's done. Yeah, the simulator's already great. Other than not being able to do a Marnie to draw your deck, which has been a problem on everything, I guess. Tabletop Simulator 2. But Robin did. The Limitless is so much better than Tom or whatever the failed one was. Like, I can't believe that they haven't hired him. You know, like just buy Limitless and make everyone's life easier. IRL people use Limitless during COVID. Like, come on. And plug his Patreon, the Limitless Patreon too.
Oh yeah.
Kevin and I are both patrons of theirs.
Anyone out there who has the means and uses anything, it doesn't have to be the play Limitless. If you use Limitless TCG, please go to Limitless's Patreon, subscribe for like $1 or $2, I think is the lowest tier a month. That way, because Robin is currently doing it, and he said this on the podcast like 2 years ago when we had him. It was one of the early episodes. He's like, oh, I'm just using my world's winnings to fund Limitless still. It's like, okay, cool. But yeah, if you have the means, please go support them for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's jump into the EUIC stuff, because we could keep ranting about live, but we have a lot of decks, a lot of stuff to cover, and some of it's probably going to go faster than others. It's like, nah, the deck sucks. The first one I want to talk about is Lost Zone stuff, and we're going to start with what I think is the best version of Lost Zone stuff, and Christian and Grant, you can disagree with me and tell me Tina's better or whatever, but I think the Mirage Gate versions are the best one and going to be the most played. That's either the Sky Seal Stone or the Forest Seal Stone. Now, of course, I'm testing for Portland, so I'm working on things that are a little more responsive to a meta that will be developed as opposed to an undeveloped meta, which you two are prepping for. So, Christian, can you start us? What do you think for Lost Zone, like Mirage Gate stuff? Is there a better version? Do you think it's going to be the most played? Do you agree with me on that one? Like, where are you thinking with these Lost Zone decks?
So, first of all, I think Sky Seal Stone Lost Box, at the very least, is probably one of the best decks in the format, easily. It might be the best. I think it's too early to say there. But it is really, really, really strong. In testing, it's been like a really, really big hurdle for a lot of decks we've been putting together. So, like, Climb, having to deal with Snorlaxes and Samazentas and even early Crams and Sableye, and then also like Drapions and Raikos or even potential Zapdos sometimes see play. Just taking like 3 to 4 prize cards like when they really shouldn't be it can react to so much in the format, and even in a meta that's like this, like underdeveloped and unrefined, it can counter everything like if it wants to. There's also like the Kyogre build, which I think is less good, but I mean, there's a world where it exists. So it's like worth keeping in mind. But I do not think it'll be the most played deck. I think the most played deck will be Mew. If you combine both Mew variants, that's more of an EU thing. EU loves Mew. I don't know why they love Mew, but they love Mew, and like for a lot of people, EUIC is like their last chance or like their big chance at an invite. So a lot of people are going to go for their comfort pick, which for most players will be Mew. So that's why I expect to see a lot of Mew. And if I'm going into EUIC, I want to be auto-winning or at least having a very favorable matchup against Mew. If that means playing double Drapion, then so be it. Which, if you're playing double Drapion, your deck's probably not that good, but that's a separate discussion.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Rapid Strike Box for that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, noticeably not on the decks we're going to talk about today. But
keep it that way.
yeah, you can play if you want to play it and you're listening to this. It is technically a deck, and there will be at least one in day 2 for sure. It is good
100%.
enough to but
Yeah.
it would not be on my list. That's for sure.
It loses to Lugia and therefore bad.
Let's go. Shout out to last format.
Yeah.
Grant, thoughts on any single prize Lost Zone or Mirage Gate, I guess, because not all single prize. There's a Drapion in every build.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the deck. I think it's really useful, but to Christian's point, it definitely won't be the most played because I think, one, yes, Mew, and I remember last year metagaming for EUIC, it's like, I know Mew and Malamar are so popular in Europe, and I was right. The first 4 decks I hit were Mew and Malamar. This is the same thing. Mew is like the comfort pick. It's really good. We'll talk about it later. That's one reason. The other is time management and game management is so crucial to that deck. It doesn't matter the build. You're going to have 50 minutes to play one game, essentially. And if you don't win, you lose. And a lot of people, there's a lot of hard decisions, and it makes it even longer to play than PTCGL. You know, you're going to have to be telling your opponent to hurry up because the decisions are hard and real, and there's not been a lot of time for people that are going to pick it up and try and bring it. So I think you skew away from it. That's part of the reason I won't be playing it. Is I don't want to be forced to try and time management a 30-minute game, a 25-minute game with a deck that could take 50 minutes to not even finish a game. I think it's great. I think the deck is great. It offers every answer, every option, other than a healing deck, something with Sharon's, big bulkies, stuff like that. Sableye is absolutely cracked, and getting to use it maybe 4 times is just gross. But yeah, I think it's its matchup spread is pretty good. I mean, it definitely beats Tina because when you play Tina down, you both flip over Comfy. You don't know if your opponent's playing Giratina, and your game plans to put 1 or 2 down, and now you have 1 or 2 on the board. Now you're in a pickle. So I think, and again, the long games, you're not going to be able to I know that for next time. I can play the single prize, version. Maybe I have a Snorlax in there too to help for that, but it still doesn't matter because it's not great. But other than that, I mean, I don't want to get in those situations. And I think a lot of people are going to agree with that.
I think where I'm at is I would definitely be playing Lost Box, I think. And I would be torn between the 4 Sealstone version. I'm a huge fan of because I think it's the most consistent and the best one in the mirror because you play. So it's a turbo build. I've got 3 vacuums in there, right? Very similar to the Taiwan winning list. I posted on YouTube the list that I was at when I won the 1K with it. And it felt so good. The other person who played it also made top 8 with it. And this is, I do want to point out because people are going to be like, bro, 1K, that's not the amount of talent in this room. We had 1 person going for top 16 NA, 2 others who have a decent chance of getting into the top 16, though they're a little more casual right now. We had 3 TPCI people. I had to beat freaking Puka in the Lost Box mirror. It was just not a cakewalk to get there, right? Let alone all the other people who were in the room. The Vancouver runner-up was there, a handful of people who top 16, various regionals, etc. Right? So it was pretty stacked. The deck is nuts. 3 lost vacuums, getting turn 2 Sableye. It feels so incredibly good. It's the turn 2 Mirage Gate, turn 2 Sableye, whatever one works best. Your opponent didn't put down the Manaphy, bet, here's a Greninja. I got the turn 1 Greninja against a Gardevoir going second, right? They're like, I'm going to go with 2 Ralts, no Manaphy, I'm going to be good to go. And I was like, all right, bet. And it's absolutely, Moonlight Shuriken them to death. It was so beautiful. I'm a huge fan of the turbo version. It does take some bad matchups. I will admit that. Lugia is a tough one. It is the only Lost Box variant that's bad into Lugia because you have no way to deal with 130 HP things. You don't have the Sky Seal Stone to deal with the Lugia and take an extra prize with your Raikou, so you trade evenly. But that's what I think I would want to play. I have been telling it to everyone in the world, and several people are they look at the list and they're like, yeah, but what if I play something else? Everyone who's tried it has been like, it's pretty good. Maybe not broken, but it's pretty good. I'm a huge fan. Highly recommend. but I think both of you alluded to the fact that we all know deep in our heart, Lost Zone Mirage Gate stuff is going to have the lowest day 1 to day 2 conversion rate. I think, I mean, Pedro Torres plays it. He's going to day 2. He's going to do incredibly well, right? But other people, I think it's an interesting choice of like, it'll be highly played, but there's a lot of people who are not going to do well with it for all the reasons that you two have already said.
I'm hoping people play it, and if people ask me what to play, I'll say play it and play the most complex build you can. And hopefully we play it, you know? Like
+1 for turbo, baby. It's very straightforward.
Yeah. No, do not play turbo. Play something super complicated and need to have a big hand to pull off whatever you're trying to do.
and please keep misplaying against me. That would make me very happy. Yeah.
Right.
That is one of the best things about, okay, so the live being on the lower end of the ladder, because I haven't played that much. I'm in Cinderace tier, Score Bunny tier right now. So you're hitting the meta decks, with the, like, maybe you're making some misplays, right? The Lost Zone players, Azul on stream is always just like, I'm just going to let him cook. And they always find a way to play themselves out of the game and run out of energies or anything like that. It never fails. So if you are going to play Lost Box, please play full games in your testing because you can get a massive head start in a game and suddenly be out of energies and just lose right there.
It's interesting in the, like, even in the US, like here in the end of a format where people have probably been playing the deck for a while, how many times your opponent goes, I messed that up. In the middle, it's like four prizes deep into the game, like I messed that up. Like, all right.
I don't think I've ever played against a single Lost Box player in tournament who hasn't made like a misplay, like ever. And like Tyler Matthews is one of my locals at like one case. He plays Lost Box Ray at like every event, and he's like, yeah, but fucked up. Like, it's that hard. It's really that hard to play. Like you could have thousands of games with the deck, and you'll still make misplays here and there. So
yeah.
Yeah, we had Pablo on after his top 8 run in San Diego. And even he was like ignoring the stream game where he's like, oh yeah, I screwed up several times there. He's like, even throughout the day, he's like, oh yeah, I misplayed this round and this round and this round and this round. And it was like, that's one of the best players who's been playing for a really long time and has been playing that deck a whole lot. It is, you will misplay playing that deck.
100%, yeah.
Sometimes the misplay isn't even what you think of, right? You're like, I haven't looked at my prize cards yet, and I lost zoned one of my 2 lightnings, and it turns out the other one was prize, and I just lost on the spot right there. And it's like, it's technically a misplay. Like, technically, you were not supposed to lost zone that, even if you didn't have the proper knowledge at the time, right? Like, sometimes you get bodied pretty hard. Shout out to Nestball existing for that one too. Having more outs to deck search that aren't as costly as Quickball is so massive for that deck.
It's a big win for Lost Box. It's a big loss for other decks though, which we can talk about later. But
I assume that'll come up several times. The nerfing of Luminion is huge.
It's big.
Tina should also fit into this idea. So Tina dominated in Japan early. Like when those first few weeks, it was everywhere. It was clearly the BDIF. It was not just the most played deck, but still the most winningest deck. It somehow won more than it was played, even though it was played the most. So it looked like Lugia level of domination. Is Lost Tina gonna be the deck again here, or have we moved past that part of the meta and we're in our own new phase beyond the Tina domination? What are your Tina thoughts, Christian?
I think we've definitely moved past Tina's domination. I can't really say why it dominated that much in Japan early on, but we can see from like looking at like more recent Japanese tournaments that Tina has actually fallen off quite a lot. Not quite off, like it's still a deck to look out for sure, but comparatively, like Lugia in particular is doing really, really well, unfortunately. And then obviously Miraidon just won a really big Japanese event, which I have thoughts on, but we can get to that, I guess. If we want to talk about Miraidon's not real, but
bro, Miraidon's broken. I get a full bench every game.
Yeah, and then a dead hand, and you just lose anyway. But yeah, no, I think Tina's good. I think Tina has a lot of good matchups. There's a lot of decks out there that can beat everything and just lose to Tina because Tina just hits really hard and it gets to play Lost Zone stuff. I think we forget how much 280 is. Like there's like 280 is a lot, and you play Choice Belt, and congratulations, you're just one-shotting everything. Besides like Gardy EX, which like you can just Sableye and call it a day.
Yeah, in that matchup,
So I think
Sableye plus Greninja is usually the
yeah,
route, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
100%, yeah. So I think Tina's good. I don't think it's the best deck in the game though. But it's definitely solid, and like you could probably make a deep run with Tina for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be shocked at all to see Tina in top 8. Like for sure, right?
100%.
And it's one of those decks
Yeah.
where it does reward skill. I think a lot of people end up saying like, "Oh, this is the brain dead Lost Zone deck," which
No.
is it's not the least bit true, right? Because you still have Cramorant, you have Sableye, you have Greninja, you have the Tinas. Like you have so many options. Like you're the Mirage Gate
Right.
Lost Zone deck, but you have a evolution line in there.
Yeah, like it's not as hard, but it's still very hard. Like it's still gonna be harder than like any other deck, like in the game besides other Lost Box decks. So
Grant,
Yeah.
can you sell us on Tina?
I can, yeah, absolutely. Tina is one of my favorite decks to play. I'm happy that it's back. That 1 month that we got, it was so enjoyable to play with. So seeing it back in the meta is great. I think Tina wins the EUIC, and I'll tell you why.
Bold.
that's a hot take. Okay.
Why it's so good, it has answers for everything. Why it's bad is because everyone has an answer for it. It's susceptible to all the same things that most of the decks play. But by having those answers, I think once they make to day 2, you basically know the top players will know what your opponent's playing. So the only real terrible matchup is Lost Zone. And so if you know your opponent's playing Lost Zone, you can play around it to a degree, right?
Yeah.
And it just becomes a, prize. It's messy, but I think it is mitigated by knowing your opponent plays Lost Zone box to start.
And there is, if you know the version of Lost Zone, that also makes a difference too, because turn 2 Shred, like if you go second, turn 1 Cram into turn 2 Shred against certain variants can still be good because it can make them overextend for a KO. Because if they trade 2 for 2, you're coming out pretty okay there, right? Because you play 2 Roxannes and a lot of other Lost Zone variants don't. So,
right.
like, if they were the Zamazenta version, maybe you're not going to shred them because then you're going to get KO'd by a single prizer and lose, right? But if they're like a Sky Seal Stone version, what are they going to respond with? A Raikou, a Dragonite. Like, okay, that's a 2 prizer. If they're Dragoniting you, you're in a great spot. And if they're Raikouing you, like you can deal with that. That's not the worst thing in the world, right? So there is knowing the variant of Lost Zone is also pretty important. Like Sablezard, you can shred Sablezard. And again, depending on prizes and blah, 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 right? But like, it's okay. It is a valid strategy that you can do as you're getting to that 10 in the Lost Zone.
I think in this early format, and it's always like what Tord would say is like play 4 copies of every card, play consistency, just do what you've got to do to survive. I think with having the Comfy engine being the main engine, I guess, is having answers to everything is really key to surviving the day 1 gauntlet. Because we've got 10 decks listed here, plus things that we don't even want to talk about because they're so rogue, but still viable, and people will bring them.
Rapid Strike.
And to have answers to all of these is, I think, really crucial to not just making it to day 2, but to like somebody being 8-1-9-0 and being in cruise control for a top 8. And I think this is the deck that gives you that. You can play fast, you can get multiple games in, you can play a 1 game. I think the versatility, the matchup spreads are all tight around 50%. They're not auto loss in any case. A deck we'll talk about later, Gudra.
Yeah.
Best matchup. Like you have your best matchup going into them because you just blast them. Having the ability to take any Pokemon off the board for 2 energy is crazy, right? Being able to put a card in that can blast a Mew for 3 prizes, everyone's going to do it. But having that is that's part of the standard deck list, right? So you're already starting with that, and then having to be able to take the other one for 2 energy is crazy. I think it's, I don't think I could sell it any higher. It's at the top of my list to play.
If it wasn't obvious after all of that.
I don't know if I'll end up playing it because, again, there's a lot of decisions to be made with the Comfy engine. I think it takes a higher level of skill than just your average player. But that's my pitch for it. You asked me to pitch it. I'm buying Giratina. Yeah. Great artworks on everything too. It's a great deck to bling out if you have money.
Bro, there's no way
awesome.
you're blinging out Giratina.
Don't
No, I'm playing. I'm
Okay.
playing min rare this block.
Okay, I was gonna
I'm
say
tired of the max rare stuff was insane. It was fun. It looked cool, but it is not worth it.
it's literally $1,000 for just the Tina line, not even
Just
the
for Tina.
choruses and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I do flip it over, I do already have the gold Tinas, so I know that's not max rarity necessarily, but like
Not anymore.
I already have them. So don't judge me.
You did mention the goo, and would be remiss not to mention Goodra purely because of the online domination. It is unreal clicking on these freaking 100-person tournaments and seeing a Goodra mirror in the finals. I don't have which one it was pulled up currently, but like Goodra is doing incredibly well. It's pulling off 70% win rates. Like 2 people play it and they both they both make top 8 in these online tournaments. Everyone thought the goo was dead. I was very pro goo pre-rotation. I'm very pro goo post-rotation as well. I was really hoping it wouldn't do well because it was on my list for Portland. If you've hit me down in Pikachu or Score Bunny tier on live the past few days, you've gotten bodied by the goo. Like, I'm pro goo. I'm gonna talk so positively about goo. So I want Christian. You're the Reggie player. Tell us your thoughts on the goo.
Yeah, I'll be bad cop here. It's a personal thing with Guja, really. I can't even like pretend to be unbiased. I think Guja should just die permanently. No disrespect to Guja players, that's alive. Can I swear? Is that allowed?
Preferably not.
Okay, then yeah, I'll keep it PG, but use your imagination.
Yeah, just insert your own word of choice there.
Yeah. No, like jokes aside though, I think the reason Goo is like still a deck and like actually viable is because it doesn't actually lose anything like at all.
No.
It loses nets and like Parasol, but
you don't need Parasol anymore. You're fine.
Exactly, right? Like you could block like I guess Tina's V-Star.
That's
or
true.
Stabilize, but it's not enough to make the deck unplayable. And the meta hasn't shifted enough to make Guja bad either. I don't think it's like tier 1, tier 1.5, or maybe even tier 2. It might not be any of those. But it's definitely like a viable, like real deck that you could like reasonably hit 1 or 2 of in a tournament for sure. But I definitely expect it to take a backseat like in the beginning of this format. And then as the format's more defined, we might see a similar thing to last format where like Guja just like comes out of nowhere and like does well all of a sudden. That wouldn't surprise me that much. And who knows, maybe I might actually beat a Guja because I don't play a deck that has an auto loss to it anymore.
That is one of the things. Goo in this format doesn't have any auto wins like it pretty much did in the last format, with Reggie being the most obvious, but there were some other Mirage Gate Lost Zone decks that didn't really have a good answer either. And now it seems like all the ones I've seen have a chance, and part of that reason is the Sky Seal Stone and being able to like smack it with a Zamazenta into a Sky Seal Stone play is pretty viable for some decks, right?
I mean, that's probably your only path on it for like a Lost Zone.
Yeah.
Because you're taking 80 less damage, whatever, you can heal everything, and you're only giving up 2 prizes. Like, you outpace them. You're taking a prize every turn. So having a really great matchup into what we're talking potentially could be the most popular deck is pretty incredible. I don't know what the matchup's like with Mew. I think it's probably around 50-50.
I haven't played it post-rotation. It was not good. It was not 50-50. Mew was definitely favored in that one. But post, I haven't.
Because Mew's too fast, right? Like, Mew can just get there before you even get set up. And even if you get set up, they can just blast you. So those are your most popular matchups. So, yeah, maybe it does take a little while to get to gain traction, but definitely be played. You'll see people playing it. I don't want to run into them because I don't want to deal with it. Even if my matchup's good, it's just so annoying. And you always play one every time, no matter what. Like even if they didn't play Parasol, or like it's like I still don't want to play this matchup.
I mean, rope bosses. Tina's the only deck that can rope boss KO.
Yeah,
And Mew, I guess. But yeah.
I think Tina just out. Yeah, having your your V star and then rope boss.
And if they never get a second goo. Yeah, or not never get a second goo, but they never get a third goo. Like you get through two of them and you win the game.
Right. I think the thing we haven't brought up is that everyone's like these decks are dead because of no net. I think it's proving totally false, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest beneficiary of net would have been Gudra in this sense, I guess, to clean up some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the other big missing piece for a lot of these decks is Rod.
Yeah.
Not having Rod is pretty critical in Gudra.
Going off of that real quick. So Maxwell Johnson won our last regional pre-rotation with the goo. The technology of the Melanie. Highly recommend, partially for that reason. You don't want to energy recycler Mirage Gate. But I've had games with Gudra. Again, I'm a Pikachu and Score Bunny tier, so my opponents aren't playing the best necessarily, but even when they're playing, like, I think they're fine. Like, I'm not seeing any obvious misplays. I've not hit a single Colress and still been able to attack with the goo because of how good Melanie is. Highly recommend. If you're going to play the goo, play 2 Melanies with the Pokegears.
Yeah, I mean, Melanie's always been good, and the synergy with Greninja is just, inherent, right?
Yeah. All right, so it seems like we've done a good job of mentioning goo is maybe not the best play, but I'm still going to sell you on the goo. I still like it.
It exists. Yeah.
Speaking of goo, our next deck is Mew. So you have DTE, you have Fusion Strike version. Christian, you said it's going to be the most played deck, and Grant, you agreed. I was going to put it number 2, which is why it's number 2 on here, but all right, bet, sell me on Mew. As what are you teching against? Are you teching against the DTE Roxanne path? Are you teching against the Fusion Strike with Deoxys and Meloetta and just clapping you on turn 1? What do you think is the most popular since you're more tuned into the EU metagame?
I think it's too early to say what'll be most popular. Honestly, both have their pros and cons. I think Fusion is more explosive. I think Fusion is probably better, but take that with a grain of salt. Maybe like a bucket of salt, honestly. But DTE is definitely the more consistent build. DTE Mew is so consistent. It's still so consistent. And like my main takeaway from this meta testing so far has been that everything feels inconsistent. The exception is Mew. And specifically DTE Mew. Just it feels like it never breaks. And like you path them, they always have vacuum. Like I was testing Mew versus Arctina earlier today, and I got like every opening hand, I had opening path in hand, right? Path them turn 1, right? What proceeds to happen is they go bump stadium, right, with anything really, and then turn 1 Meloetta, kill whatever's in the active. Every time. Like 3 games in a row without fail.
Let's go.
And needless to say, I'm not playing Arctina anymore. I wasn't on the deck, but any potential thing that could have happened with me playing Arctina is just gone now. Because like you could just lose to Mew in a single turn, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Force Sealstone really made the turn 1 Elisa Sparkle almost so guaranteed easy. Now. Yeah.
It's like in like Cram, like you play 4 Crams, so sure Cram's a coin flip, but like if you find enough Crams, you're gonna hit heads, right? Like statistically. And then your deck, like if you build your deck around it, it's so easy. And it's so annoying to deal with. Like you start a 2-prizer, there's nothing you can do. You just pray. You actually just have to like pray. Which feels terrible. But yeah, needless to say, I think Mew is really good. But I guess like a counterpoint is that I think because Mew is I think a lot of Europeans expect Mew to be the most played deck. Or at the bare minimum, like the second most played deck. I think everyone's going to be playing Drapion. I think you're a fool if you're not playing Drapion this weekend. If you have like If you're playing anything Lost Box, play a Drapion.
Mhm.
If you're playing Miraidon, I don't know why you would, but if you are playing Miraidon, play Drapion. If you're playing like literally anything should be playing Drapion. Even like there is an argument to be made for Lugia playing Drapion. Like
Mew is that
unironically,
good. Yeah.
Mew is that good of a deck that you could actually argue playing Drapion in a deck that already plays at least one Tyranitar. It's insane, and that's another like good thing for Fusion is that Fusion has a inherently better time into Drapion because you have one prize attackers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, leading with Meloetta into a Drapion deck is like they have to find a different answer, and that offers you more turns, and more turns favors Mew.
Exactly. Also, if you're attacking turn 1, like unless you're killing a Comfey, you're probably just winning like immediately. And even then, like you can turn 1 with Deoxys into a Comfey, and then like they can't just cram you because you have 120, and Deoxys is an actual like card you should be playing now. I think
100% agree.
At least in Fusion Mew. And then with DTE Mew, it's like less explosive, but they can still just Judge Roxanne, like Judge Roxanne, do the best Judge Roxanne deck in the game for sure. Not Judge, Judge Roxanne Path, like either or throughout the game. And like you could just Roxanne to 2 useless cards and lose the game, like regardless. So yeah, Mew's good. Play Drapion if you want to do well.
Yeah,
that's it.
To add to the Fusion Strike Mew real quick, Deoxys 100%. I agree. Collapsed is also incredibly good into the Lost Zone decks, just in general, because you play something like Deoxys or even 2 Deoxys. I don't know if that's a little aggressive or not. I might be overthinking Lost Zone, but you know, you have these things that can't be crammed, and then you can clean them up, or you can clean up your Mew, or you can do whatever, and that just screws up so bad because I've mostly been on the Lost Zone side of it, but you're sitting there and you have your exact prize map, you have all your damage counters ready to go, and then suddenly something gets collapsed away, and you just don't, you're just like, that's my game plan. I now need a whole extra turn, or sometimes even 2 turns to have a chance. So you lost City, so you can get rid of the Drapion, obviously. But I'm also a big fan of Collapse, big fan of Deoxys in the Fusion Strike deck, or I'm not a fan of it because I would play Lost Zone if I were going to EUIC. So take your pick on those 2. Grant, Mew stuff.
Yeah, I mean, especially because this is the UIC, like I'm haunted by round 1 James Cox double donking my my Arceus, even having like the Crobat VMAX and all that, like just not being able to get anything and just knowing the power and speed of the Fusion Strike Mew. I'm gonna be ready for it for sure because I think it is gonna be super popular. And then as far as like the DTE Mew, just having to deal with disruption every turn. Like Judge every turn, and they always have it. It's so consistent. You know, I think it's actually probably the better play. Like when I bought the, like I said, the Mew codes to fuel up my live account, and the first deck I built was obviously Fusion Mew. I'm like looking at it, like DTE Mew might just be better of the 2.
I'd believe it,
especially given all the comfy stuff. Judge path, Roxanne path. Like, it's insane how much that just wins you when you're already doing what you want to be doing on the other side, either way. Like, not only are you brutally beating people with damage every turn, you're disrupting them every time. It's so crazy. I agree. I think Drapion should be in most decks. The problem, I think, like if you put it in Lugia, it might not really fit in there. I don't know necessarily. I think part of the problem is, well, actually, no, I think it's fine now because you're playing stadiums, right? You're playing stadiums.
You have like 3 or 4, yeah.
That was the issue last time because if you kind of want to go to Lugia, but the path you can only get rid of it once. So you usually do it to use your V-Star. Then if you can't get rid of path, Drapion's, you have to power it up, and that's 4 energies is energy intensive, and you can't do. You really have to start thinking about that.
I know we're not supposed to hype up Lugia right now, but Tyranitar having the extra HP into DTE Mew specifically and requiring 2 modifiers is very good.
Yep.
Tyranitar is a very good card. This is very true.
It's so gross.
Unfortunately, it's such a good card.
I mean, I don't know how much more there is to say on Mew. We know it's good. We know both versions are good. It's going to be very popular combined. Christian and I both think top played.
Yep.
I'd put it at number 2, but that's still that's still there. Yeah,
We'll
you
see.
lose the vote 2-1. So
that's true. All right, so let's jump into Lugia because we were already starting to get into Lugia. This is a deck that last week on the like, hey, what is your group in testing and stuff like that? It was like Lugia's good, but a little inconsistent. And then the online tournaments came, and the online tournament said, actually, maybe it's still inconsistent, but the power level is so high, it doesn't matter. And it won both late nights. It's been all over top 4. It's been winning other, 100 people tournaments. The Lugia, the single strike Lugia. Grant, I want you to start us off on this one because I know Christian's going to have a lot of positive things to say on Lugia for sure. But Grant, the Lugia, the single strike Lugia, the T-Tar, etc. Good.
if you remember, if anyone remembers during COVID when these sets came out, Locke and I were the biggest champions of single strike and trying to make it work. And I was playing it in the Zool sub tourneys and doing really well with it. Only person really getting there, like finals twice. I love single strike stuff, and it's just been so. And obviously the Grant rants came from Impact Energy, Earn, Houndoom, all of that. I love seeing it working. And it's really great. I don't know how, like, I haven't been in the game long enough to know what a run hot deck is, but I think if I had to define it, I think this is it. I think if you are, flipping well and you have the right build, the deck, you're going to win a lot. And that's sort of what Lugia was to start with. If you get 2 Arceus in the bin right away, you just win. Other than the mirror, because sometimes you can, you don't know. If you have a Manaphy down or something, you start a Manaphy, then they end up dogging it for 2 prizes at the end, something like that. Yep. But I think, I really like it. It's growing on me. I'm going to be testing it later today a lot. Really excited for that because I like the single strike stuff. I like the versatility of T-Tar. And I think that might be part of the success it's been having online is a lot of people didn't really know what it does. And so when you're like, oh, T-Tar is going to come in, they're going to hit for 300 and they just mill you instead. You're like, okay, well, there goes the cards I need.
Yeah.
And then you hit into them and they mill you again. Like, okay, there's everything I need.
And the mill can hit for 140 too, which is
right. And
right.
The mill does damage.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, I think probably caused some surprise. I think going into EUIC after round 3 or 4, your opponent will know what's going on. But still, they can't stop you unless you have built your deck to stop Lugia. The way we've been doing it the last 4 months or whatever this format, 6 months it feels like.
Tropius grass energy, baby. Let's go.
Rally back.
Yeah. Back, Tropius.
Boonana.
Exactly, bro. The Tropius.
Oh yeah, that's my thoughts. I like it. I think it'll be popular. I don't know what the top players will think of it. I'm sure some groups will bring it for sure. Just because it is that powerful and it is Lugia. I know the strategies around capturing Aroma. Nest balls.
Just flip the right coin. What's the strategy?
I know the strategy. Flip the right coin. Nest ball's an interesting wrinkle because very rarely, usually most of the time, you want to have your Pokemon down the turn before. So Nest ball's kind of just there. I don't even know. Like maybe you play 2 max. It's not a 4 of ball count, which feels weird because the whole thing is about getting your Pokemon.
Nest ball's the type of card that, like, it is nice for like the Radiant Serena plays, and again, I'm a Lost Zone player, so play Radiant Serena and Lugia. I hate saying that out loud, but
you should.
It is good. If you play that, really I'm scooping almost immediately. Like if you get the turn 2 and play Radiant Serena, like, I mean, there are versions that have answers, but every version of Lost Zone I like does not have an answer to that combo.
That's fair.
And Radiant Serena's, a chunky build too. What is it, like 150?
It's 130, which is, again,
only
every basic in that stupid deck has 130 or more HP, which is
And it heals itself, so.
Exactly. It's so bad for Lost Zone unless you have specifically built a deck that can answer, which is like Raikou, Skyseal Stone Boss,
Yeah.
and a way to KO T-Tar.
Unless they have the Dunsparce. But also,
No,
like,
bench the
again,
Dunsparce, please. Let me pick it off. No.
Right.
Bench the Dunsparce, please.
Yeah.
Don't play Dunsparce and Lugia.
Don't play Dunsparce.
Not right now. Yeah.
I don't know. Play, if you're going to bring Lugia, bring the Dunsparce. Go ahead. But the other thing, too, is like you can't path this deck anymore. It's not just a path and win or path and buy two turns. A deck we'll talk about later that I'm sure a lot of people are going to bring is a deck that needs those 2 turns. You're gonna see Klefki. You might see a early path. If you're playing stadiums now. What the right stadium is? It's probably Mezagoza. But, you know me.
It's so funny.
If I'm bringing this deck,
card.
I'm going to be testing out the tower because tower and draw Amma, play the 4th urn, even though you probably only need 3. Just having some utility, like that's what I would do with Duraludon early on, like a year ago now, I guess. Salt Lake City or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'm loading out with Karens, I'm loading out the towers, and I'm going to draw cards because that was the biggest problem with the deck. Biggest problem with this deck too was path and bricking and drawing and just your top deck. Well, now you don't have to worry about bricking, and you have gift energy. So you don't have to worry about bricking. Like, it's got answers now. Is it better than before? I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm talking myself into it right now.
Yeah.
It's hard not to talk yourself into it. Christian, talk Grant into Lugia real quick.
Oh, I'd love to. I wouldn't, but I'm going to anyway. I hate that I'm saying this. You have no idea how much this pains me to say. I think Lugia might be the best deck in the format.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that hurts to hear.
Might.
All right.
Either
Well,
Lugia or Skyseal Stone, in my opinion. This is early on, but
Yeah.
I think Grant covered most of like the important stuff, but I think something I really can't overemphasize is how good T-Tar is as a card. This card just seemingly unintentionally counters the entire metagame for like no reason. Like, it has an attack that one-shots everything in the game. Okay, the first attack
Hey,
one-shots
Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX survives.
okay.
That deck's not real, but okay. Like the first attack, just like the first attack is actually just really, really good because it kills everything or almost everything in Lost Box.
Yep.
Right, for minimal effort, and mills 2 cards, which can be super relevant. Like, you mill 1 important card against Lost Box, and the game just ends.
Oh, you hit like a chorus too?
Yeah. Oh, you can hit a chorus too. Like, oh, your deck just doesn't work. Like, unless you just draw a second one off the top. But it's a really, really, really good card. Stonejourner is a good 1-prize attacker. Yveltal is a good 1-prize attacker. I won't talk about it too much because there are some things that can't leak. But Single Strike has a lot of good options.
Yeah.
And they're mostly really good.
Yes. Because like we talked about this pre-pod, or was it in the middle of pod? Houndoom is so bad that the single strike attackers are so good.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. My one gripe with the deck is that I have to flip coins, and I do not like flipping coins. Even if Mesagosa is like fine, because you can like put it down, like get it, like maybe get a Pokemon, and then discard it with Lugia so your opponent can't use it. I think that's kind of nice. Capturing Aroma can either be the best card in your deck or the worst card in your deck, and you just never know which one it's going to be until it's too late. I would like to say that I'm really happy that we're actually acknowledging how good Burnett, if not, is it called Burnett?
It's Professor Burnett, yeah.
Burnett, yeah, as the card. Like, that card is nuts. Like, having like a Lugia and a fish in your hand, and like you flip on the like you just get a V-Star like on anything really, but you have to flip for it, which sucks. But and just having like Burnett, like you don't have to do anything else.
Yeah,
like you just have your setup and you don't have to worry about it, right? I think Lugia is really, really good. Maybe slightly inconsistent, but comparatively to so much else, it's really not that bad. And then best of free as well. It's
you only got to set up
bad.
Twice.
Yeah, exactly. Your deck is also just really tanky. You play V-Guards as well. Like, everything has just way too much HP. So you could fall turns behind, and you're probably still fine into most matchups. With exceptions, of course. But
regen energy, too.
Regen
Like,
energy
that's
is so good.
Cram hit,
yeah.
and then you're just like, all right, bet,
Yeah.
fully heal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're still
Been
gonna
there.
do your strategy, like get rid of the
Mhm.
Mesagoza with the V.
Yeah.
Like it still does everything.
Yeah. Like, unironically, like, going second, attach regen energy, read the wind, like, what are they gonna do?
Oh yeah.
Like, they just... Lost Box just kind of sits there, like, okay, what now? Like, I can Raikou, maybe, if I have it. Turn 2, which is a lot to ask for. But,
Turbo,
like, that's
baby.
the only... Yeah,
Force
Turbo!
Seal Stone
that's-
for the vacuum.
Yeah. No, I think Lugia's really good. I think there's a reason it's doing well in online tournaments.
You both
Um,
mentioned capturing aroma. I want to talk real quick that there's been a little bit between like Great Ball and capturing aroma. And Christian, you seem like someone who might have done the math on it also. But I ran through all the like numbers with the thing that I can't remember anymore. I keep wanting to say dimensional analysis, but it's not dimensional analysis, but whatever. The calculator that's like the probability of hitting a thing within a thing. And capturing aroma is vastly superior to Great Ball almost all the time. The exceptions are when you have 4 Archeops in deck at the start of the game, but you need to get 2 of them, not just 1 of them. So I'm a pro capturing aroma there because it's like an 8% difference between Great Ball being better. When you have 3 Archeops in deck, you need to be down to less than 30 cards, if I remember correctly, for Great Ball to be better than aroma. And by that point, if you're still digging for the second Archeops, you're probably screwed, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Luminion, you play 2 probably in the deck, and if you play 2 Luminions in the deck, aroma is almost always better than Great Ball as well. So like Great Ball really only matters if you're going to Great Ball first and then hit a Mesagoza ahead. So Great Ball feels better in theory because you don't have to flip, but I will say based off the math that I was running, it really seems like aroma is not just like a little better, but like vastly superior, like 10% plus odds of hitting what you need better than Great Ball is. So don't buy the Great Ball hype. I'm not.
And it's a guaranteed thin too, at least 1 card. Like
Also
yeah,
big.
that's the little things add up eventually in a long run, especially a long international. Just any little slight advantage is huge. So
And aromas too, like, all right, if I hit, I don't even know, heads. If I hit heads, I get the Archeops. If I hit tails, I hit the Luminion for the Burnett. So yeah, there's
so you're fine. Yeah.
that's what I was saying for the aroma strat. I wasn't gonna give that one away. It was too.
Well, I'm leaking. I ain't going. All
Yeah.
right,
I mean, obviously it's pretty intuitive at that point, but
we're pretty pro Lugia. As much as I hate to say it,
Yeah.
I was ready for Lugia to be done. Especially the one tournament I brought Lugia to. There was no
There's one
saving
too
those
many.
hands. Yeah, it turns out 2020 is not make a good deck. Well, sometimes it does. It won plenty of tournaments. Lugia was the BDIF, but there's a lot of very good players who did not do well with Lugia. Anyway, Gardy is the next one on the list. We're kind of going to zoom through the last few, I think. Gardy might be one we talk a little bit more on because there's a lot of cool stuff. But Christian, pro Gardy, against Gardy, and or are you teching for Gardy?
I have a lot to say on Gardy, but I'll keep it short. I love playing Gardy. That deck is so fun to me. I would like to start off by saying I'm very pro Mirage Step. I think Mirage Step is nuts. I also refuse to call it anything besides water duplicates. Like from now on,
Let's go.
I'm announcing trade water duplicates and psychic recharge, and you cannot stop me. And if I'm playing Mewtwo, I'm saying I'm assembling Exodia.
Yes,
Okay.
you have
So
to.
if I'm playing this at EUIC, which after today's testing, I might not, which I'm sad to say. But if I do fall back on it, I will be announcing my cards like that, and you cannot stop me. So yeah, no, I think Gardy's good when it works, and or when your opponent doesn't just shit all over your board like immediately.
yeah.
I think Mewtwo is probably the best way to play it as well because it gives you an actual Lost Box matchup. But even then, like if you could go turn 1, you could go 4 Ralts, and turn 2, like assuming you're playing Mewtwo, which normally doesn't play Candy, which I think you should play a couple. That's just my opinion, but like turn 2, like if you get crammed, you have 3 Ralts now, and you go 3 Curlias, right? And then you kill a Curlia, and then you have 2, right? And then you don't play Candies, so you bench a Ralt, and it's like not doing much. if you can even like find Stretcher or find Clara. And that's another reason I think Mirage Step is really, really good, because you can preserve Ralts, and then you only need to find your Curlias again, which you grab double Curlia instead of like 1/1 off of like your Pokemon recovery. Yeah, I think Gardy's good when it works, because you can like win most matchups in like 2 to 3 turns.
When
so
it
you
works,
don't
it's so
mind
good.
overstep. It's so nuts when it works. Like into Lost Box, you'll be 3 turns behind, and it's like if you can kill a Drapion, like, and get rid of the Drapion out of the deck, it's just set up Mewtwo, Roxanne.
GG's.
Kill. Yeah, I was like, oh, you don't have an answer to my 310 HP Mewtwo? Okay, like, they can't scoop up another Comfeys. So they will literally, like, it's literally checkmate.
Yep.
If they don't draw out from 2 cards and, like, a Flower Selecting and a top deck, right? Not Zamazenta. Zacian Sky Seal Stone is also just insane into, like, half the game. Again, you can fall 2 price cards behind Lugia, and then you go Sky Seal Stone 1. You could Mewtwo a benched Archeops. Earlier today, I Mewtwo'd an Archeops, so my opponent couldn't T-Tar in combination with Judge, right? So they hopefully didn't have T-Tar energy. Then if your Mewtwo survives, the game might as well just end, because you like one-shot everything on their board and snipe and snipe their Archeopses. You could play it without, but your matchup spread becomes worse. You're probably not that much more of a consistent deck. But like talking about we were talking about earlier how like I think it was Tor that say like max consistency, like to start the format. We were like seriously discussing playing 4 Battle VP Pass, 4 Level Ball, 4 Fog Crystal, and 4 Ultra Ball earlier today. It hasn't been tested yet, but it was brought up.
I think there's validity to that.
Yeah, because I just want to see Ball Search.
Because
like
Gardy, I think, is the deck in this format, even ahead of Lugia. When it sets up, it does in fact beat everything.
Literally everything.
The problem is, do you set up fast enough to beat Lost Box?
Yep.
Do you set up at all into Mew or anything like that, right? Like, yeah, those are the killers.
That's what I brought up earlier. Like a deck that needs 2 turns, and so I think Christian makes a good point. Like I think you kind of have to run the candy. I know everyone like Twitter, and it might just be meta manipulation, but like getting candy gives you a turn that you can't afford to lose that turn, because unless you like start the Zacian, do the ability attach, and then have an attack the next turn, you're sitting out 2 turns, which is crazy, because everything can attack in 2 turns on you. A lot can attack on you 1 turn. We're gonna see Fusion Mew. We see Cramorant. Like we're gonna start seeing attacks. So you can't really afford to wait to evolve, and again to go to the Ball Search. Put them all down. Hope they don't die. Evolve. Hope they don't die. Evolve. Now I can play the game.
Yeah.
Add to the Fusion Mew real quick too. They play multiple Lost City, so you also need like, because you have to get your stuff out there ASAP, because they Lost City a single Ralts. It's feeling bad. That's pro candy. Yeah. The only non-candy version I've ever played that I liked, and I think I'm safe saying this on stream now, because with Lugia becoming good, I think this deck is now unplayable, but you play a very heavy Klefki version with the Mewtwo V Union, and it did very well at the 1K. Cameron Shinoy was on it. It seemed really good, but Klefki into Lugia is literally just dead cards. Like you get farmed so hard in that matchup. Yeah, it's not playable anymore. And people have definitely tried this version, but it felt really good into like most things, and you didn't play candy because you wanted your refinements and you were able to be really slow, and otherwise candy's a lot scarier. Lost Box, if you double candy Gardy's turn 2, I'm feeling bad. I'm not super excited about having to KO 2 of these things now.
That's another thing. Sorry. I think Klefki's like really bad in the deck personally.
I don't think
Klefki does anything into like every deck that loses to Klefki in theory already plays for Escape Rope. So it's like, does it actually change anything? And then against Mew, like all they need to do is just go Mew DTE, right? Like, because if you get 2 Klefkis down turn 1, you don't have a board. Like at most you have 2 Ralts, right? Realistically. And if they start swinging, well, you just now you just lose, like, period. I don't think Klefki's a very good card. Also, my room got really dark all of a sudden because the sun's setting. So sorry about that.
That'll happen.
Yeah.
Real quick, I made a tweet yesterday about like it's fine taking a bad matchup to something. This is off of the list that I posted. The Turbo Lost Box was like, what do you do against Klefki? I've gotten asked that so many times. A, Klefki sucks. B, you let everything else beat Klefki. That's, I mean, granted, there are decks where you're like, you know, Tina, you're fine. Lugia, you're fine. A lot of Mew variants are generally fine because you just need kind of one turn of drawing cards. So yeah, there's certain things you're fine losing against. I will very happily say it with my full chest. You can lose to Klefki at EUIC and be fine because so many people will not lose to Klefki because it's not that good.
You could lose to Klefki and win anyway.
Yes.
Like,
there's a very real chance you hit 0 Klefkis the whole tournament.
You see it too, like especially like a teen or something that can lost or whatever the abyss of sneaking.
Yeah.
And like you're chugging in there. All right, they're buying their turns, whatever, setting up, and like they have like you have Greninja and you can snipe, and they can't use their mana feed because the Klefki shuts it off, and like it hurts yourself at times. Like especially like shutting down your own Greninja, like. Well, you might need to draw cards. Like you can't just sit behind one. You need to sit behind 2 because of rope. It's just such a bad card right now. Like, unless you're playing some sort of stall or control or something where I don't even know where it would work. It just
that
seems
wants
so
to play
bad.
other cards. So,
yeah.
And you're turning off your own deck.
Yeah, because you can't Rotom when you have the Klefki in the active as a control deck, and not being able to Rotom's bad because you're like, oh, I can Klefki and then Misfortune Sister spam Lost Box. But then you're like, how am I drawing any cards? Because I have a Klefki in the active, and I just have to hope the top deck of Misfortune Sisters every turn and mill all of their switch cards so I can eventually block Snorlax something. And I've been lost in the control sauce too. Like I said, I'm thinking a tournament ahead already, and it's a very different world out there. And I'm just going to play Lost Box anyway. Miraidon, next deck. Speaking of Klefki decks, before we jump into the Christian's currently shaking his head no. Grant, you audibly said pass. I can't sell anyone on Miraidon. I'm sorry. I think it's not bad. The problem is, and Christian, I think you said this earlier, you do set up, right? Because I was like, oh, you get your full board turn 1. And you're like, yeah, but then you dead draw. And there's no other way around it. The only good Miraidon deck, I think, would play multiple Flaffies. But then you lose to Sableye, and you're no longer a good Miraidon deck because you lose to arguably the best deck in the format. And that's not a good combo.
No.
Is there...
No, I think...
Go for it.
Yeah, I think the only reasonable way you could play the deck is with a line of Flaffy, probably a thinner line of Flaffy, and like a Radiant Greninja. And then you have a way to draw cards without like ruining your entire deck by discarding energies every turn. I think Recycler makes a lot of sense in the deck anyway, so you could maybe do that. But like being forced to play Greninja doesn't feel good either, right? Because you want to play like a smaller amount of ball search cards because a single ball search cards should be able to fill up your entire bench, right? I will point out that there was the list that won over in Japan that played like a Magnezone line, which I think is good. I think if you're playing Miraidon, which I wouldn't recommend, but if you are, you should be playing it with Magnezone, and I think that list also played 2 Pokegears.
For
which
those
adds to consistency.
who don't know what the Magnezone does, which was me like a couple days ago, it's switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and do 40 to the new one, and then you have Regieleki VMAX, so you can KO Comfey, Ralts, whatever you want to.
Yeah. There's also the V-Star, which I think it's like a 2-1 line. I believe the V-Star for quote me if what's it called? Stop me if I'm wrong here.
Oh gosh.
But I'm pretty sure it's 2 or 3 energies, and then you get to search your deck for 2 trainer cards or item cards.
They're item cards. If it were trainer cards, that card would be so much more playable. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But like even just item cards, like you can get double generator, or you can get generator Pokegear, right? Just being able to like pick generators out of your deck is a huge deal because the primary issue with Miraidon has kind of always been like you set up one attacker and your attacker dies and you have a dead hand because you don't have a draw engine. So Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Miraidon. Not good.
Yeah, it's lightning colorless for 180, and then the V-Star is also on Magnezone. You bring up the Comfy with your Magnezone V. They don't KO you because they're like, whatever, I'm going to rope around this thing because this thing sucks. Valid. But for Lightning, the V-Star does 90 to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So it's bad Greninja technically, but you can go 2 turns in a row and you can get 3 prizes with your 2 prize Magnezone. So it's, I don't know if it's good, but it definitely sounds like it is the correct way to play the deck. I will
it's the correct way to play a bad deck.
There we go.
There, yep. Yeah. I can't say it any better. I got nothing to say. I haven't tested it. I think it's garbage. I think Christian said it well. You fill your bench up, and then what do? You're dead. Like, great. You set up. Maybe you get the generator once. Okay. Now what? Your drawing is because you're getting a prize card. Like, I think it's. I hope people pulled a lot of the cards, Miraidons, and I hope they're really excited to play them, and I hope they bring them to EUIC. I'd love to play a few of the first couple of rounds.
I feel you, man. I feel you. I play Miraidon. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. Right. I only play one deck, so I'm bad at Pokemon. Yeah, don't listen to me. No.
And before the Miraidon fans, or after probably, because they've already sent it, but before you post the comments on the YouTube or DM me, if you think you have the broken list that's different than the ones we've already seen, that's fine. Bring it, prove me wrong. If there's another meta deck, I will be so happy. But the lists I've seen, I've not played the latest Japanese winning list, but the previous ones, the Leckies, both the hit and run and the other version, they are not something I would ever bring to anything above a league challenge, honestly. Which is, they're not. Right. Yeah, you better bring something different if you're bringing Miraidon. And last thing, we're going to skip a couple decks. We're skipping Rapid Strike. We've already been making fun of Rapid Strike, but I think Rapid Strike will see more success than Miraidon will. It's just, the deck is a potato. It's
not by a lot.
It is a potato. It's such a potato.
It's like you just don't set up, and you'll hear people, because now we're at the time where I will click on random Twitch streams to see what people are playing and things like that, and you'll see people playing it and they'll be like, oh, if I would have set up, and it's like, yes, it turns out not drawing cards does result in your deck not setting up. Like, this is not a surprise.
And somebody who won't be named, I think he hosts a tournament on Friday. Sent something in our Discord that he loved the deck, and no one got crickets. Like, no, buddy.
So we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about Dialga, even though I absolutely love that one. We're not going to talk about, I think those are the only ones that are really meta, because the last one is going to be Arceus. So we've seen Arceus Giratina. It's already been mentioned on here as probably the best one, but you could also see Arceus Pile, quote unquote, which is Arceus plus Espeon plus pick your favorite V-Star that isn't Giratina. And that deck also technically exists. Arceus Duraludon, too, I do want to point out, did see success in Japan at a point. And so like significant success, not like, yo, I saw that thing win a city league once. Like, there were a couple weeks where it was constantly top 4 or better of almost every single city league being the League Cup equivalent. So technically that's a deck too, right? But Christian, Arceus, is this real thing currently for EUIC, or does Arceus need a more defined meta?
I think Arceus is real. I just don't think it's not up there with like Lugia Lost Box Mew. I hate that I'm saying up there with Lugia Lost Box Mew again, because I've been saying the same thing for like the past 5 months. Because they're just still the top 3 decks, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's just the world we live in. Kind of have to deal with it. But anyway, I think Arceus is fine. I think if you can survive past turn 1 against Mew, you're chilling, because you play 4 Path and you play 4 Judge, right? And at some point they will break. It might take a while. They will break eventually, and you'll be fine. This is talking about Arctina, of course. Mm-hmm. I talked about it before, but 280 is just a lot of damage, like an unreasonable amount of damage for a lot of decks to handle. Just being able to blow something up is a big deal. If you're playing Arctina, I think you should be playing Drapion. Yes. More so because then you can set up a Tina and Drapion something, and you have 2 attackers that one-shot Mew VMAX, and you go down to free prize cards, right? So there is counterplay from you into that, especially if they play Fusion. but like you're putting your opponent in a really, really hard predicament where you need like one card and you win the game, right? And you play the barrel, that's very reasonable. So I think Arctina is a good deck. I just don't think it's like one of the best decks, but it has a real chance into like all the best decks because you could still Path is still an effective strategy against Lugia. It's just not as effective as it has been. And also against Lost Box, like you honestly don't even need to play Pikachu in the deck. Like you can just set up an Arceus and just judge him every other turn. And like you're trading pretty evenly unless they play Zapdos, which most don't. And they whiff a single turn of attacks and you just win. Like you just kind of win. Like you don't even have to set up Tina. You could set up like 2 Arceus and a Tina, just so you have a response to like V's, to one-shot V's. But it's really not that necessary. Like you're fine trading just into their entire deck, because they're gonna whiff an attack and then you're gonna win. And Cram isn't even that relevant, damage-wise, because Cram freeze shots. So I think Arctina's good. It just has to get over like the first turn hump. And then Arc Pile. Vulpix is a great card until you hit Tina.
Yep.
And that's it. I think Arc Pile with like Vulpix and Aerodactyl, and probably Espeon is how I'd play it right now. And then you play Matchup Roulette and you pray you don't hit Tina's. Like that's where I am with Arc Pile, honestly.
And there's someone out there who is fine playing the matchup roulette, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, it's not me, but I mean, you could.
I guess that's one of the other downsides of Miraidon playing Magnezone, to go against, as much as it pains me to go against Vulpix, because I wanted to play Vulpix to Toronto, the only regional I've been to, and I was like, it's actually not great for this meta. Turned out it was. Oopsies.
Oops.
Magnezone is now the only good attacker in Miraidon that actually gets through Vulpix, which is very unfortunate and very saddening for me. Grant, before you speak positively about Arctina, because I know you're going to, I think the biggest reason I always come back to Arceus decks is because they can play 4 Ultra Ball and be Barrel, and these are very good cards. I've heard
very good cards.
I indulge
And
a lot of
Skwovet.
Pokemon content. That's true too, and Skwovet. I indulge in a lot of Pokemon content and Twitter, and I keep hearing the same phrase: we need better Pokemon search. That is blatantly false. Ultra Ball is a ridiculously good card. We were spoiled before with Quick Ball and Incense and Ultra Ball. But like, no, Ultra Ball's it's so good. And the fact that Arceus is one of the only decks that can abuse that, and Judge and Mew can as well, unfortunately. But Arceus can do it. Always draws me towards Arceus decks for sure.
Yeah.
Grant, sell us on it.
Yeah, obviously, I'm obviously a big fanboy of Arceus. Like, Arceus has done me so well in the past. But I think it's still just so good and consistent. The V-Star power is crazy, right? It's always going to be good. Being able to abuse Judge Path, we've already talked that up with the DT Mew. Like, how good Disruption and how good this deck is against Disruption is crazy, as you were just saying. Bibarel, Skwovet, like it's got all the tricks and tools, and the best part about it is that it is able to adapt to the meta. You can play the cards. Like right now, like we're saying, Giratina hits hard. It provides that utility. It's big, it's beefy. We didn't talk about Sharon yet.
True.
It's got healing, which is great. It's got all the tricks and tools. If you want to do, we've seen it with water stuff, the Melanie. You can play it with whatever you want, essentially. You've seen it with Duraludon, powering something up and getting off the board and being, that's all you're used for. I think at this point, if I'm leaning towards Tina, with a backup of Lugia now that I've been talked into, I think my safe pick, if I don't feel great about either one of those, is going to just be Arceus. It's pretty straightforward to play. If you've played it before, you do know the little nuances. If you don't, by round 3 or 4, you'll probably have picked them up. A day of testing. It's pretty straightforward. It has a decent matchup spread across the board. I think its worst matchup on Trainer Hill is the Urshifu pile.
Valid.
So you don't even have to worry about that.
Yeah, you don't have a worse matchup. What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So like you're doing all right at that point. We talked about if something hits into you with a stone, it's like they have to find that and the stone and the switch in a turn when you're judging them, when you're pathing off their Greninja, like it's pretty good. It's just, it can brick. If you don't get 2 arc down sometimes, like against the Mew Fusion Strike, you're donezo. If you don't get an energy attachment turn 1, that means you're not evolving to be able to power up your bench Pokemon. So it does have flaws, which happen a lot, but we're playing best of 3, so it's pretty consistent. Other than that, if you can set up 2 out of 3 times and you have a decent, you can attack going second, powering up your bench, that's pretty useful. I think it's a good play. It won't be played a ton. I do think it will take some time. We'll see it at the regionals. You'll see it at Portland. But I think it's a pretty safe pick. It's the safest pick for UIC. Put it that way.
I think that's a reasonable statement. Yeah.
One last pro Arceus thing too is previously it was bad because of Lugia and Palkia being able to OHKO it if you went second, right? It was like picking off a V was so easy. Lugia can't really do that in this format. And it technically can, but like it's so unlikely that you're going to get 2 Archeops in the discard pile and have Gust if you go first as Lugia. And then Palkia obviously isn't. I want Palkia to be a deck, but we mentioned earlier Tyranitar can OHKO everything. That includes Ice Rider, and Palkia Ice Rider would have been a good deck if it weren't for that. Other good deck that we didn't talk about. Yo, no
Dream Ball
leaks.
Palkia could come out there? I don't know.
Anyway, where was I going with this? Oh my gosh. I completely forgot. Arceus. Oh, Arceus is a good deck because it was gate kept before by things that are no longer in existence. The keyword is good. The keyword is not great.
Yep.
I'm not selling anyone on it over Lost Zone. Play for a Sealstone box. That's still my pick. I've not changed my mind.
Yeah.
I think we've covered all the big decks. I'm really excited for people to add us after Rapid Strike Box wins EUIC and call us all morons. That's fine. If we're this wrong, I'm welcome to that change. Bring on the Rapid Strike Box supremacy, baby. But
come talk shit. My DMs are open. Tell me how wrong I am. I dare you.
Omnipoke is still around, and they said that ADP was a terrible card. So.
Christian, if people do want to DM you and tell you how wrong you are, how can they do that? And any shout outs you might have.
Oh, I'd love to answer that question. Yeah, I like to shout out myself. You can follow me on Twitter at what's called Sticks PTCG. I shitpost and like post deck lists, and it's the same thing everyone else posts on Pokemon Twitter, and not that unique. I have opinions, and sometimes I say them, even when I shouldn't. That's it, really.
Grant, how about you? Shout outs and where can they find you?
Shout out to KDR, all the boys, including yourself, Mello. Twitter is a thing. We could do a whole episode.
that was a deep thought right there. Thank you for that one.
I have so many things about what's been going on that. But to follow me, it's at RealBooCK, one word. I think the funniest thing about this episode is watching Christian, if you guys are watching on the YouTube, slowly melt into the darkness.
The sun's going down here.
Yeah,
it's getting late. Yeah. It's not even that late. It's like not even 9 o'clock.
It started bright and sunny, and it's slowly.
It's just disappeared completely.
I don't know where the light switch is in this room. This is not my room. Yeah.
Myself, you can find me
Yeah.
on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at mellow_magikarp. When this releases, I will be on spring break, which means I will try to stream once or twice because I need to grind on live. And if I do it on camera, I'll actually play. And if I do it off camera, I'll play a game and then say, I'm done with this. I'm going to do something else. So there will be a stream, maybe even 2 next week, to play some live and practice for Portland Regionals because I have to win. Otherwise, I have no self-worth as a content creator, right? This has been another episode of the Lake of Rage podcast, and we'll catch you all next week.